Well, a very good afternoon to everyone that's tuned in for our first webinar as part of the Unlock the North webinar series with Townsville Enterprise. My name's Wade Chiesa. I'm the Director of Regional Development and Investment with Townsville Enterprise. And today our topic is water and agriculture. And I guess, to put it bluntly, COVID has really lifted the profile of not only water security and storage, but also agriculture. And it's important to note that all levels of government, and I guess all sides of government, are starting to talk about the importance of this. And I think we have a unique opportunity to get things done and built. So today you'll hear about projects that are specific to this region. In August, the business case for Big Rocks Weir was delivered to government, and the Hells Gate business case is on track to be delivered in 2020. And I'd like to welcome John Bearne, the project manager, here this afternoon. G'day, John. And also, I'd like to, you'll hear about the progress of the Urana Dam business case, and Carly Abbott will present on that today. So a big welcome to you, Carly. Thanks for joining us. After those two presentations, we'll have a great panel. Not only will Carly and John join the panel, we'll be joined by Richard McLoughlin, the CEO of the North Queensland Water Infrastructure Authority. So g'day, and welcome to you, Richard. Thanks for joining us. And also Michael Guerin, the CEO of AgForce, about just the potential of the ag industry, not only in this region, but I guess in regional Australia. And as always, you'll have an opportunity to post your questions via the Q&A function. We've already had a few questions come through, and we'll try and get through them throughout the panel during the afternoon. Before I commence, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners upon the land on which we meet today, and not only where we're meeting, but also where these projects are actually located. And I'd like to pay my respects to those elders past, present and emerging. To get us underway, I'd like to introduce the CEO of Townsville Enterprise, Patricia O'Callaghan, to welcome us all here today. G'day, Trish.
Hi, Wade, and thanks for that. And good afternoon to all of our viewers that are on today. We've got a number of dignitaries online, and I welcome you all. And again, I'd also like to pay my respects to the traditional owners. We do certainly have a great session lined up today. And as Wade noted, I think the theme that we're focusing on is North Queensland water and agricultural opportunities. And there is no more timely a window to be discussing this issue than right now. I think it's important, though, for many of us that are in the regions and have been living in the regions our lives, this is not a new conversation. Long has the North been flagged as a food hub for the globe, and even more recently within our own studies at Townsville Enterprise, we partnered with our North Queensland Regional Councils of Mayors, as well as the CRC, and in that ag study alone, we saw that there was $3 billion alone of unmet global market demand across 10 of Australia's leading ag export destinations. And North Queensland could clearly play a key role in feeding that unmet demand. I think what's also important is those partners are online today, and I welcome them all. And I also acknowledge the partnership that we will play in turning these study outcomes into real jobs by working with the private sector. These are exciting statistics for our region, for a sector that we know contributes about 3.5% of our jobs locally. It's about $604 million annually, or 3.8% of our GRP. So it's quite a significant sector. But what we know is that we can grow this, and to take advantage of this opportunity, what's important is that when we do talk about ag, we also need to talk about water infrastructure. And it seems people are listening across the country, because all levels of government, a lot of our politicians and all different parties are talking about water in the North. And I think this is absolutely critical, because it will need agreements across levels of government as well as different parties. I think what's also critical, though, as these discussions are taking place, is that our local community has the opportunity to guide any policy or any investment discussions, because it is those that are on the ground that know what our community needs to prosper. I think what's more important in this COVID new world that we are all living in is that it has been our ag industry and our farmers that has kept our economy moving. And what we see as huge potential is that if government can further unlock this opportunity and work with the private sector and our industry, we can and will play a much needed role in providing the jobs, not just for Queensland, but for Australia. as we all recover from this crisis. So some really meaty topics today. We've got a fantastic lineup of speakers, and hopefully everyone will get an opportunity to contribute to this discussion because it's a timely one, an important one, and one with a lot of opportunity for the North. Thanks, Wade.
Thanks very much, Trish, and we welcome everyone here this afternoon. Okay, it's now time to hear about Big Rocks, Weir and the Hells Gate Dam business case. And I'd like to welcome the project manager, John Bearne. John was the founder of his own North Queensland construction company. He's a previous chair of the Chamber of Commerce and Townsville Enterprise, both of which he's a life member. He has a project management background, enables him to the foresight and the ability to deliver objectives within scope and budget. And John, welcome, and over to you to present on the Hells Gate Dam and Big Rocks Weir business case update. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, Wade, and thank you, Trish, for that introduction. As I said, my name is John Bearne. I am the project manager for the Hells Gate Dam and Big Rock Weir business case. And today is a bit of an update on both those business cases. But I should start off about water, which is really the source of where the work starts here. It's often a resource we often take for granted. It's only when we cannot quench our thirst, or we cannot water the garden, we cannot wash the car, we're not able to replenish the environment, we cannot irrigate our crops, we cannot keep our livestock alive, or we cannot maintain our ecological systems. That's the importance of water, and the management is recognised in this way. Today we are presenting two business cases which address these water issues. And through these two business cases, we'll be talking about how we do the planning, the science, the engineering, the environmental surveys, the cultural heritage management agreements, the cost analysis, and the sustainability. And with that, I might start off with Big Rocks Weir. Big Rocks Weir, I might move down on that one. Big Rocks Weir, the final business case was delivered by Townsville Enterprise to both state and federal governments on the 21st of August 2020. That followed 9 months of intense work with our partners in that one, which were GHD and KPMG. And GHD were responsible for doing the engineering on that business case, with KPMG writing the business case and doing all the economic analysis. Let's have a look at the Big Rocks Weir and what it's all about. Its location is 26 kilometres north of Charters Towers, and it's based on holding 10,000 megalitres of water. The purpose of the Big Rocks Weir is twofold, in fact three when you can count industrial development opportunities. But initially it was there to give urban water supply security, that is to the township of Charters Towers, and to supply water for irrigation to the adjoining lands either side of the weir. The project includes a mass concrete gravity weir, associated infrastructure including saddle dams, outlet works, fishways and access tracks. It's particularly designed as a very simple weir, no complications here, with the idea of trying to keep the cost of the weir down so the water remains at value for money. Reference design. Well, that's, as you know, the reference design was completed as part of the business case, but also included what we call a P90 cost estimate. That means the cost for the weir, the establishment of the weir, and all the design which needs to finalise the weir prior to being constructed have been included in that P90 costs. Approved processes, well, they included cultural heritage management agreements, plus a whole host of pathways to processes which needs to be established and needs to be developed before we can get down to it in terms of building a weir. It became our application into the Office of the Coordinator General as a coordinated project is current with the Coordinator General's office, and we are waiting for a response from them now. Environmental assessment for the IAR is expected to be delivered on January 2021. So it'll be about 6 to 9 months following the delivery of the business case itself. Capital costs, you'll see that we've got a capital cost estimate of $59.82 million with a P9 in the P90, which includes about a 38% contingency. A contingency fund is very important in terms of big rocks, is that there are still some unknowns there until we actually follow through and do the final design. Site location there, just a pictorial, lovely picture. Anybody who's been out to Big Rocks or Big Bends, you know that place is just a marvellous place. And its intent about the Big Rocks Weir is that it will increase the benefits around the Big Bends and the recreational areas there as well. So there are lots of side benefits which are part of this project. What are we looking about the water? And I mentioned earlier about the importance of water and the management of that. So we've got 20,000 megalitres of unallocated water currently available in the Bearne River Plan. And 10,000 megalitres of that is what we call strategic water or strategic reserve, with 10,000 megalitres of general reserve. As I've mentioned before, that's been allocated to the upper reaches of the Bearne, exactly where we are building the planning to build the Big Rocks Weir. When we're looking about the BRWs here, the yield modelling undertake indicates that with a 10,000 megalitres, you will get 100% reliability of that water. So that's when we talk about how that will affect the river and the flows. With all that science been done behind that, with 10,000 megalitres allocated to Big Rocks Weir, you get 100% reliability. More than 10,000 can be made available, but would you expect it to be delivered at a less reliable number? So if we went to 15,000 megalitres out of the 20,000 available, then the reliability comes slightly down by a few percent, but not by much. We haven't actually landed on an amount of water which the DNRME would allocate to this project yet, but the project proponents, which is the Charters Towers Regional Council, will further those discussions and finalise on that. Let's have a look at here, the BCR on those. Very, very important numbers we have here. In fact, this dam is a very cost-effective piece of infrastructure. Dams, particularly larger dams themselves, need heavily subsidising. It's the nature of the beast. But this one here, with 10,000 megalitres, we get a BCR of 1.38. If we use 15,000 megalitres of litre water, our BCR will go up to 1.8. And if we were allocated the whole 20,000 megalitres of water, it's 2.14. These are staggering numbers in any water piece of infrastructure. We looked about the full-time equivalents of 172 for construction. In a place like Charters Towers, that's an amazing number in terms of a place which has quite high unemployment. And if we look at full production, an estimated 35 million additional agricultural revenue and 117 full-time equivalents. And that's all based on the 10,000 megalitres of water. And as I said before, it's not just about agriculture, it's about the security of water to the township of Charters Towers during the extended dry periods. I said the business case was delivered in August 2020. The IRA mentioned January 2021, and construction is somewhere between the start of the dry season next year or the dry season 2022. That's a decision for governments. Next steps, 30 million funding committed by the Commonwealth Government. So that's already on the shelf and already been committed, and we'd like to thank the Commonwealth Government for committing that funding there, plus funding this business case. We are seeking matching funding contribution from the Queensland Government of 30 million. And what needs to be done next? We need to progress with the detailed design. We need to see how many of those contingencies are real in terms of when we finalise that design. And as I mentioned earlier, the Charters Towers Regional Council will remain as a proponent for the construction, the delivery and the ownership of the Big Rocks Weir. It becomes a very local project, and with Charters Towers already managing a Weir, their township there, this would be a business as usual for them. I'll move on to what is a project which is a much larger project. This is the Hells Gate Dam. And I'll talk about, in terms of projects, we've spoke about Big Rocks. We're talking about 3,000 hectares of irrigated land coming out of that project. Here we're talking about 50,000 hectares of land coming out of this project. Enormous difference. Start looking at the size of this here. We talk about 2,100 gigalitres of water for the Hells Gate Dam. For those who get the better handle on what that means, it's a third larger than the Bearne Dam. It's a big piece of water. 50,000 hectares of irrigated land, which is currently used at this moment for grazing cattle. So so this is, in terms of green sites, this probably will be seen as a green site in terms of agriculture. 25,000 hectares of inundated area. Again, somebody get a size of that, it's about 5 times the area of the Sydney Harbour. These are large areas. This is a very large project. Project dam height, 75 metres, and there'll be 3 cascading weir pools down from the dam. And they will be used to irrigate the 50,000 hectares. So we will have a northern weir, a central weir, and a southern weir. Location of Hells Gate Dam is upstream from Charters Towers, northwest, and also northwest up from the proposed Big Rocks Weir. So as we mentioned, Big Rocks Weir is around 25 kilometres out from Charters Towers. This is around 120 kilometres, much further up the river. Hells Gate Dam, it is a very important project for the region. It's not, that's very much an understatement. It's a game changer for the region. And what we're talking about in the export, the opportunities for export out of 50,000 hectares of irrigated land here is enormous. The supply chains will be tested. The export from the port and the airport will be tested. And obviously Charters Towers servicing these huge projects will be tested. So these are all projects down the future which need to be looked at once Hells Gate Dam gets the green light to go ahead. But it is a game-changing program. It's being delivered in accordance with the Queensland guidelines. Its application is with the Coordinator General for it to become a coordinated project, and its environmental impact assessment will be completed in January 2022. This is a pictorial of where the dam is and the inundated area, and you'll see on your slide at the top there, that purple colour will be the inundated area, and to the right of the purple you'll see the red mark of the proposed Hells Gate Dam. And then that dam will feed via the river, not by pipe, via the river, down into the Northern District Weir. And that weir will be on the Bearne there and will distribute water out to that northern yellow area for the irrigation. It will then cascade down to the central area where there'll be a central weir which will irrigate the central section, and similar when it gets down to the southern area, there'll be a southern weir which will irrigate that area. And finally we'll end up coming down by the Bearne, the Big Rocks Weir, and the Charters Towers Town Weir. So a whole series of weirs cascading off the dam. Business case, and let's have a look. The photograph there is on where you'll be at the base of the Hells Gate Dam. And if you start imagining we're standing there on the sand base of the river is only probably 300 millimetres of water at that time. So we're very much on the base of the river, and the dam, we will be 75 metres underwater from that position we are standing there now. It is a very, very high dam. Business case, April 2022, that's on schedule to be delivered. As I mentioned, the environment impact assessment, January 2022, and construction unknown at this period of time. This is a great chart of the dam's weir and its irrigation, and you'll see, as I mentioned, the dam will be up to the top left-hand side, and as you see, it will cascade down through the three weirs, the northern, the central, and the southern weir. And out of each of those weirs will be pump stations and channels out for irrigation, and they'll pretty much be to the farm gate. So the farmers who will be working this land around here, this 50,000 hectares, and they'll probably be big, very large organisational farmers, and not what you would call mums and dad farmers here, because the cost to set up all of the irrigation is going to be quite large because of large areas. But they'll be irrigated to the farm gate, and that's all part of the business case. So that schematic is probably one of the best examples how explain how the Hell's Gate Dam is going to work. And as I mentioned earlier, it's still very much in its early stages. We haven't, we've done a lot of desktop modelling. We're actually currently doing some initial design concepts, surveys, cultural heritage management plans, inspections and topographical surveys. On site, as we speak at this time, we do have the cultural heritage traditional owners doing their inspections, and we do have the geotech drilling rigs on the site now. So they've started their work from the southern weir, and we're working their way back up towards the dam. So progress is happening now. So there's a big push to get all the geotech completed prior to the onset of the wet season. What comes along with this, though, is the pumped hydro storage. This again, as a could be a standalone project, is large enough in itself. We are talking about 850 megawatts of pumped hydro generation. It's an enormous amount of energy, and it's a pumped hydro system somewhere in the order of $1.5 billion. This is a project which can be easily linked in with copper string, with the solo farms coming out of Hughenden, and other solar schemes running around that region. So it could use their power, in fact, to pump the water back up so it can be used in this pumped hydro scheme. There are a whole host of opportunities here, and the energy which comes out of there, the 850 megalitres, can then be channeled back to Townsville, or can go west out to the mine sites. There are currently two options we are looking at the moment. Option one uses the Hell's Gate Dam reservoir as the holding water, so it pumps up from the Hell's Gate Dam reservoir and puts it at the top on the left-hand side into that holding reservoir, ready to be drop-fed through the turbines. Option two is the one where it holds its separate lower intake and has a complete standalone system. So each one of those options are being considered at the moment, but each one of those options they're looking at the moment to be very viable. That concludes my address in terms of Hell's Gate Big Rocks Weir, and if I may, thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to that, and I hand back to Wade.
Yeah, thanks very much, John. Thanks for your presentation, and you'll join us on the panel very shortly to answer some questions as well. It's now time to hear from Carly Abbott, the Communications and Stakeholder Engagement Manager from Bowen River Utilities. She's got a lot of experience with federal government, over a decade. She's an experienced policy advisor and political strategist. She's currently responsible for the Urana Water Scheme, the Bowen Renewable Energy Hub, and the Collinsville Irrigation Scheme. To present to us, I'd like to welcome Carly to do that. Thanks, Carly.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining today. Thank you to Trish and the team from TEL for putting this event together and inviting Bowen River Utilities to participate. We're very excited to tell you about the nation building project we're working on. I too would like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'll begin by bringing everyone up to speed on the location of the project. The Urana Dam and Bowen Renewable Energy Scheme will be located in the Mackay hinterland on the Broken River, downstream of the junction with Urana Creek. It's roughly 64 kilometres southeast of Collinsville and about 63 kilometres southwest of Proserpine. On your screen there, it's shown as the dark blue dam in the centre. You'll notice that there are two pipelines that run from Urana Dam, which also form part of the Urana Water Scheme project. One heads south from Urana Dam to Murrumba, to the industrial customers in the Bowen Basin, and the other to north to Peter Faust Dam. They're shown in the red and green lines on the map currently on your screen. Finally, the Collinsville Irrigation Scheme, which is highlighted in fluoro green on the left side of your screen, centres around Bowen River and Bowen River Bridge running around Collinsville. So a little bit of background on this project. It's been around since the 1950s and there are very good reasons for that. It's a really good spot for a dam. For those that have seen it come and go over the years, we recognise that there's some scepticism around the project, but I'm proud to tell you that this is the furthest the project has ever been in terms of its development. And there are a couple of major reasons for that. One being the unique partnership with Bowen Collinsville Enterprise, a group that has driven the vision of the project for well over 30 years, and BCE are the key economic leaders in the region and they are supporting this project. It will also lead the next generation of assets in the water space for the growing regions of Mackay, Whitsunday and Isaac, and it will open up opportunities of agricultural land for high value export crops. All of this is being underwritten by customer demand that our team are currently out there working up. So what is the project? The new bulk water scheme is an ambitious project, and one of the things that we've been very open about is that a dam on its own is very hard to make it stack up. That's why our project is concentrated on the regional economy of food, water and energy. They have to work together. For this reason, we recently underwent a rebranding and renamed the company to Bowen River Utilities, which then encompasses the three project areas we are working on, being the Urana Water Scheme, which includes the dam and pipelines, the Collinsville Irrigation Scheme, and the Bowen Renewable Energy Hub. I'll explain each element as we go through this presentation. The purpose of the rebranding was to also focus on the company name to show that it's actually our vision for the region of where the project is and really pay homage to the geography we are located in and the communities that we really want to benefit from this project. At the moment, we're in various stages of studies for all of the projects. We know from experience that water can transform regions for the better. It's a very simple equation. We want our projects to do what Fairburn Dam did for Emerald. Currently, the project is estimated to be $2.9 billion. That's a big project for this region. There is no doubt that this project will help diversify the North Queensland economy. Underwriting that is the critical issue of water security. Water security gives us the financial flow-on and economic benefits that lead to job creation in the area. The projects combined will create almost 1,200 jobs during construction and more than 650 jobs once operational. We will shortly be taking expressions of interest for job opportunities so that we're ready to hit the ground running and deliver the project as soon as physically possible. One of the things stopping a lot of other projects in the region from going ahead is access to secure water, and our projects will deliver that, meaning that 30 active and 71 new local projects will become viable in the region. So let's look at the Urana Water Scheme. It centres around the dam, and while we are currently looking at a series of size options, we're ultimately looking at a 1.5 million megalitres in size. To give you a sense of size, it's about 80% of the capacity of Burdekin Falls, but it only takes up about 20% of the land area. From a dam engineering point, it's a very exciting project because you have a very, very deep dam in a great location on the Youngler Range, which is subject to long-term rainfall. In terms of context and using the same comparison that John did, it's about 1.5 times the size of Sydney Harbour in terms of capacity. As I said, the location has been studied in great detail because of its strategic position high up in the ranges, making it sustainable for long term and maximising rainfall it captures. The final piece of the Urana water scheme are the 2 pipelines, as I mentioned earlier, one north to Peter Faust Dam and one south to Moranbah. This is the first rendering of our dam wall located on the Broken River on Urana Station. It's one of the first of our detailed design drawings that we've released, but we have a lot of way to go on this wall. We're looking at all different options to help it blend into the surroundings in terms of, making it green, whether that's a vertical garden, but making sure that it also blends into the surroundings. The next element I'll talk to is the Bowen Renewable Energy Hub. And we're very excited about this part of the project because it relates back to the vision that we inherited from Bowen Collinsville Enterprise about food, water and energy security. The Youngler range allows us, with water security, to investigate a range of pumped hydro options. Where we have that range and that area, it means we can put upwards of 1,000 megawatts of power that can be supplied during peak demands. We are also looking to supplement that with solar so we can pump water back uphill when it's needed. One of the wonderful things, and with support of the state government, is our location to the national grid. And that means that our power can be sent at a lower price to those big industrial users that need it. Given the existing major connection infrastructure there, we can get to coastal locations like Gladstone, where other coal-fired power stations come off. The last piece of the puzzle is the Collinsville irrigation scheme, and we are particularly proud of the work that our team has done here. It's ultimately around the region of Collinsville, and it includes 20,000 hectares that is being investigated to be master planned irrigation. Master plan means we can control runoff and sediment, making it better for local waterways and reducing runoff into the Great Barrier Reef. The land we are looking at isn't currently reaching its full potential. This irrigation precinct will open up produce high value quality crops that we can produce and export. We are serious about this project. We completed our preliminary business case in March 2019, and then in May 2019 received a federal grant from the federal government to complete the next step in this project, which is the detailed business plan. We opened an office in Bowen in October last year, and we have staff located Bowen, Brisbane, and contractors and consultants on site, and a team of around 70 working on this project. In May this year, we reached a significant and exciting milestone for our project when the Queensland Government announced us as a coordinated project status for the Urana Water Scheme. Essentially, this streamlines approval processes and means that government will assist in navigating the various departments we need to work with to get a whole of government approach. It also makes us one of the most advanced water infrastructure projects in North Queensland. For the last couple of months, despite COVID and how that has changed the way we all live, we've continued. We've had a team on site and we're embracing technology to get things done. We've been taking soil samples, ecologists investigating flora and fauna, drilling core holes, and hydrologists looking at the water and the rainfall. We've set ourselves a very ambitious timeframe to complete all our studies and approvals because we know how important jobs, water security, agricultural land, and the flow-on benefits are for the local community. And we urge government at all levels to make sure this is efficient as possible. For those who aren't familiar with the long approval process for a project of this size, we're currently undertaking our EIS and detailed business case studies. The draft EIS is due in early 2021, and at that point we'll be undertaking extensive community consultation. However, we've wanted to get out ahead of that and learn from the community as much as possible so that we can incorporate feedback in the planning and studying process. We want the local community to be just excited about this project as we are. So we're currently holding regular virtual information sessions, and these will become in person when COVID restrictions ease. Thank you all very much for your time, and I hope you've enjoyed this presentation about the exciting projects that we're working on.
Thanks very much, Carly. Appreciate that. It's now time to hear from our panel. Of course, Carly and John will join our panel, but I'd like to introduce again Richard McLoughlin, the CEO of the North Queensland Water Infrastructure Authority. G'day, Richard.
Good afternoon, all.
And also Michael Guerin, the CEO of AgForce, who joins us here today as well. Thanks for joining us, Michael.
It's a pleasure. Good afternoon, Wade and everybody.
All right, I'll start, I guess, first question. Richard, I'll come to you as CEO of the North Queensland Water Infrastructure Authority. Can you give us a bit of a brief as to the key objectives of the authority?
Well, certainly. Look, firstly, thank you to Townsville Enterprise Limited for organising this webinar today and for your leadership in delivering for us the business cases for Big Rocks, Weir and Hells Gates. And I'd certainly like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of land on which we're all meeting today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. In answer to your question, look, we are a very bespoke and small Commonwealth Government agency. I think the fact that we exist is a recognition by the Commonwealth Government of the importance of the projects in this part of the world. We were established in March 2019 specifically to deliver 2 projects at that time, the Hells Gate detailed business case following on from the earlier feasibility study, and another big irrigation project out at Hughenden on the Flinders River. Since that time, we've expanded a bit. We're now delivering up some other projects related to distribution of water and other irrigation potential projects around Charters Towers and to the west of Hells Gates. We can come back to that later if people wish, but at the present time, I think recognition of the importance that the Commonwealth places in both Hells Gates, Urana Dam with its commitment of the money for the detailed business case, all linked back to the National Water Infrastructure Development Fund, I think should give comfort to people that the Commonwealth is serious about investing in water infrastructure, particularly in the north, and we're looking for the best opportunities. I think Townsville and the Townsville region and North Queensland is putting its best foot forward at the right time to be promoting these projects, and congratulations to everyone involved there in North Queensland. You're making every effort to look and sound and act professionally, and I think with a real eye to business development and profitable business development of that. So it's a pleasure working with you all. Can I say, however, mindful as always, that it's not development at any cost. No one that I've been talking to in any of these discussions and debates over the last 12 months wants to have development at any cost. We need to be mindful of the value of assets like the Great Barrier Reef, the commitments to the Reef 2050 plan, the absolutely essential need to fully engage with local, regional and Aboriginal communities all through the area. Everyone has a stake in these projects. We look forward to working with everyone to deliver them. But once again, can I congratulate Townsville Enterprise both on today's webinar, but also your past, present and future leadership in delivery of these projects. And certainly colleagues delivering the Urana Dam project, congratulations to you too. It's a great part of the world to be working with.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. It seems, is it fair to say that all levels of government now are actually realising the importance of water, security and storage for regional Australia? And do you think COVID's probably even amplified that a little bit more? I guess the point I'm trying to make is there's been lots of talk about it over the last decades, but it seems as though now's the time. Is that fair to say?
I think that's absolutely fair to say. And as I said, I just want to come back to this theme. We all want to see the social and economic benefits that can come out of this development. But again, it's at this maxim that it's not at any cost. We're very cognizant here that the Commonwealth has committed $600 million to the Reef 2050 program. We've got a World Heritage status to protect. The questions that we're asking as part of our regional development involvement here around infrastructure for water is around how do we do this sustainably? Importantly, how do we do it profitably? There's no point building all this infrastructure. It's got to be for a purpose. And the delivery of affordable water for farmers who can reasonably expect to make a profit while not impacting on the environment. Those are really the tough questions and why so much effort and time is going into this. At $24 million, the Hells Gates business case is the largest business case that the Commonwealth is funding anywhere in the country. I think, again, that reflects the importance with which the Commonwealth sees this project. But again, it's about, let's make sure we do it once, do it right, and then put the information of not only government, but also the community there.
Thanks, Richard. John Bearne, I'll come to you in relation to Big Rocks. This, I guess you'd say, is almost, with the funding, is construction ready. And you mentioned Charters Towers Regional Council. We had a question come in saying that will they own and operate Big Rocks Weir, and will they gain the revenue from that project? A question from someone in the audience.
Yes, Wade. Charters Towers Regional Council, the proposed proponent of the Big Rocks Weir project, and if that materialises, which we strongly support it would or should, is that they will be the owner, operator and manager of that weir. So they will then manage the water licences from that and the costs, because there'll be a whole host of other costs going associated with that, including the maintenance of the weir. So yes, in terms of that answer, that they will be the owners, managers and operators. Thanks.
Thanks. Carly, in relation to the dams in general, where do you see the biggest, I guess, risks are, and have government committed funding to your project? A question that's just come in.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we were fortunate enough to receive $10 million from the federal government in May 2019 to progress the studies along and complete the detailed business case. So we're working on that, and there's a series of steps that we go through. But other than that, it's a private, market-led proposal, and but I would have to say that I completely agree that all levels of government are on board recognising the importance of water security. And when you look at the recent events, we all know drought. In Queensland, we know what drought does, and I commend the federal government for getting on board and looking at a long-term water strategy to really provide security for the rest of the country and make sure that we can produce, high-value crops that we can export and help build that industry as well. So, as we've said, all levels of government are on board, and now we just need to make sure that talk turns into reality.
Yeah, thanks very much, Carly. Michael, I'll bring you in from a CEO of AgForce. We did mention water security and storage, obviously, from a farmer point of view, giving them that certainty and, of course, the unmet demand for food production. What's your view on building these dams and the opportunity available for not only farmers but for regional Australia?
Thank you, Wade, and thank you for Townsville Enterprises to invite us into today's conversation. Wade, it goes without saying that water is essential to life itself. So without water, we don't have life, regional communities and agriculture industry or anything else. And we still have something like 65% of Queensland in drought of some form. Some got up to 7, coming on 8 years old now. We still see towns where water's being trucked in. What we believe is important for industry and confidence, particularly for young people thinking about committing to a life of agriculture or other industry and regional communities, is firstly a plan, a Queensland-wide water plan. And as far as where we don't have one at the moment, we don't have a bipartisan, agreed, high-level plan from which these things can sit under. And as one of the panelists said, we've had over 20 years since a big piece of water infrastructure was put in. And indeed, without raising that today, there's some challenges with that around maintenance. We have a lot of existing infrastructure that's not being maintained and kept up in the way it could be. So some great opportunities, and we talked about some of them today. To us, on behalf of producers, what we need firstly, though, is that bipartisan Queensland water plan that we can be confident and work under for many years. Just to take one example, if a young family chooses to go into agriculture, they often have to take on a debt, whether that be family debt or from the bank, etc. That will take them many years to walk out from underneath. So to take on that debt and to take on that commitment, they need that certainty, that long-term certainty. In Paradise Dam is an example where that certainty might be taken away because of the lack of that plan and the lack of that ongoing commitment. So to take nothing away from the really powerful conversation today, that certainty, long-term certainty, bipartisan certainty, and that plan of which all Queenslanders can confidently work under, really important underpinnings to this in our view. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Michael. In terms of the ag industry in itself, where do you see the big priority areas that government can act? Is it around the red and green tape, or is it about certainty for farmers?
Wade, I think it's a bigger set of what I just talked about principally, which is a bipartisan plan and a commitment from the state to the future of agriculture. And we talk about green and red tape as one example of that. I can mention many examples where, again, as we swing from different sides of government, we have different approaches to, for example, the vegetation management legislation, to the pristine rivers conversations we've had up north, to the Lake Eyre Basin, to the reef regulations. What industry needs more than anything is not one view or the other necessarily presiding, but we need to stop the pendulum swinging. We need that bipartisan certainty, because this is a long-term planning effort, whether it be building a dam or water infrastructure, whether it be the road infrastructure, whether it be the ports and the planning around that, whether it be young people choosing to take on a 40-year commitment to a piece of land to grow produce and become a primary producer. That planning certainty is the biggest thing. So that bipartisan support, that knowledge and confidence that when you change government, this pendulum doesn't swing violently one way or the other, and therefore tip out some of the assumptions you've made in that planning piece. In our view, currently the red and green tape in Queensland is overly burdensome, and that is certainly one of the challenges we have right now. But if you have a bipartisan approach to thinking about a long-term future for Queensland and the very important part that agriculture can play in that, then you can start to deal with some of those issues with that certainty and that bipartisan support. And that's more than anything what we're looking for, and when you talk to young producers and pastoralists, and when you talk to young people in communities about thinking about staying and committing, that's what they're after.
Thanks very much, Michael. Another question from a panelist. I'll come to you, John Bearne. Can raising the Burdekin Falls Dam, and I guess this goes to Michael's point about a more Queensland-wide water plan, can raising the Burdekin Falls Dam to its full potential height happen in conjunction with Hell's Gate Dam, or are they effectively competing projects?
It's the one thing we all have to remember about dams is that we are not inventing any more water. So it's still the same amount of water which comes down the Burdekin River, whether you have an increased Burdekin Dam, Hell's Gate Dam or Urana Dam. It's still the same amount of water. So it's how the water plan, which is up for revision, I think in 2023, is how that's all those new proposed infrastructure projects, which are all great and standalone, but as a whole, they need to be taken into account in the Burdekin water plan. So if you look at all three, probably going to put some seriously stresses on the availability of water and taking into account other demands of the water, which would be the current irrigators, the environment, the Great Barrier Reef, etc. So it's a big piece of work to start looking at the big picture, but there's certainly our advantages in the proposed schemes which are on the table at the moment for those organisations to work closer together and start sharing some of that information, particularly around the research aspects of runoff, nutrients, etc., which has the potential to cause even further damage to the environment. So sharing that information amongst the three, let's call it the three big players, the Urana project, the Burdekin Dam project and the Hell's Gate Dam project, that would be an immense value, particularly to governments to start understanding which way they should be directed.
Thanks very much, John. I know, Richard, you have to leave shortly. Did you have anything further to add in relation to that?
Well, absolutely. John is exactly right. Thinking strategically about how would we best use the available water at basin scale. So in Commonwealth water policy or national water policy with the National Water Initiative, the preferred unit of management is the basin. Now, all three of the projects that we've just mentioned are in the Burdekin Basin. Two of them are on the same river, the Burdekin River. So in my mind, a really intelligent conversation yet to be had would be to say, how would you utilise the current Burdekin Falls Dam and Hells Gates, if it was built, to maximise the utility of the sustainable water that could be set aside for irrigation after taking into account of environmental flows and whatever else we needed for cities and towns and the like. So linking, for example, the fact that there is unallocated water in the Burdekin Falls Dam, using a modern water market to shift water upstream to a Hells Gate Dam for the 50,000 hectares of irrigation. All of that is perfectly logical and possible and is being done elsewhere in the country. You don't have to invent any new systems to do that. What we need to do is have those discussions around implementing innovative systems for sustainable water use in the Burdekin catchment. And I think Guerin could easily be part of that on where there are shared water licences and shared water utility issues in the same catchment and the same basin in particular. So these are really good discussions to be had, but we don't need to invent any new wheels to do it.
And I guess this is more broadly to the panel. So is it fair to say that it should be a bit of a priority for government to work out what the best approach is, not only for where the water storage and security, but also the best value use of the agricultural land and the land available? Is that a fair point?
Well, if I can answer at first go, Queensland has a very valuable sugarcane industry on the Burdekin Delta, but we all know that some parts of the land down there is potentially going so on. So is there an opportunity to use water markets to open up opportunities for existing irrigators to move further up into the catchment where they don't face those same difficulties and where they might be able to have a better range of options around crop types, at higher value. So those are all of the debates that can be had over the next 12 months if we're clever about how to make the best use of the available water with the infrastructure that is possible in that basin.
Michael, I'll throw to you. Did you have anything further to add on that?
I did, Wade. Thank you. It's a really good question. Perhaps I can put an environmental lens over it to give one example about, you talk about planning for different land types, and I touched on earlier the idea of a Queensland-wide plan. And the agriculture industry in Queensland, we all know, is a big industry that's contributed enormously over many years to the state, and will be going forward, arguably more so after COVID. But a really important, well-founded industry, and a lot of land in Queensland. But just to take one lens across planning around land types, etc., in Queensland we have 13 distinct bioregions. Now each of those bioregions are unique and rich in their own ways, from the Mulga country out in the southwest to the rainforest up in the Cape, etc., and everything in between. But we have one set of policies around land management across those 13 bioregions. So therefore, by definition, at least 12 of those bioregions have a suboptimal policy setting for best environmental outcomes alongside sustainable land development. And then you can put the overlay of water, etc., on top of that. So, we have an enormous opportunity in our view in Queensland, a really rich opportunity that many in the world don't have, an enormous resource in our land, a beautiful environment, huge rangelands out west, for example, and a genuine collaboration between all levels of government to reinforce what some of the other panelists have been saying, an all of landscape plan, which is bipartisan and we can work under with confidence, will, in our view, provide a step change in the way we treat our environments in Queensland and the way we think about development, and give us the confidence to walk that forward. And without wanting to get political, and I don't, even in the current state election, there's conversations about various water infrastructure where there's a political nature to the back and forward of that, and that's a democracy, and we accept that. But if we could get to a bipartisan approach to at least the high-level idea, we have 13 bioregions, we have an enormous set of assets, we care about the environment, the reef's important to us, it's a world heritage, it's important for the globe. If we can have those underpinnings and work more confidently under those, I think some of the roadblocks we currently have might put behind us. The fact that we haven't had any water infrastructure for 20 years might be a piece of history we look at rather than be repeated in the next few years. So that's a real piece that we find more and more we come back to as that important foundation piece that everything else can sit under. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. I'm conscious of time here. We've got one last question. I'll throw to Trish because it's in relation to the Burdekin Falls Dam Stage 2 of the full raising of the 14.6 metres. In one of the questions here, they view it as the best dam project in the world, and that it's reported Australia's rice crop has fallen by 80% due to poor, unreliable water supplies. The Burdekin Falls Stage 2 can provide water for a capital construction cost of $220 per megalitre compared with other schemes. The question is, why isn't TAL supporting the Burdekin Falls Dam Real Stage 2? So Trish, I'll throw that over to you.
Yeah, and happy to answer that. And the question was from a very respected contributor to this, Tony Manning, to this conversation here locally. But so I think from our point of view, and I know John's touched on it and Richard has as well, you know, there very much is an opportunity for the proponents to do some information sharing and some contributing around the current proposals that are being investigated. From a TAL point of view, as we are at the moment delivering the business case on the Hells Gates and Big Rocks Weir, we're obviously talking about it a lot, and it's a key part of our advocacy. But you can also see that we are supportive of the Urana Dam proposal and also the raising of the Burdekin Falls Dam, which has a piece in our Unlock the North document. I think the Sunwater, who is leading that business case with Building Queensland, was invited to present today, but weren't in a position to take up the speaking opportunity. But we're excited to come back to us at a later date to present a status update as to where that business case is at. I think what we're seeing is that there obviously are a number of proposals at the moment. They are moving into business case phase. And I think between everyone on this panel and webinar, we do want water for the North, water for our farmers and water for our jobs and the economy. I think these next 12 months to 2 years will be critical in determining which ones will actually turn solid, get some concrete in the ground, and at the day provide us some security and growth in the agricultural space. So very much all supportive at the moment, but we've got a fair bit of work to do, and we do know we need to work with government around which ones will end up turning concrete. So hopefully that answers your question, Tony.
Thanks, Trish. And it is literally 1:59 p.m. Very conscious to wrap it up right on 2 o'clock. We still had a few other questions to get through. What we'll do is we'll answer them offline and post them on our website as well. It shows just how passionate people are in relation to water security and storage and agriculture as well. And I think COVID has really lifted the importance of those industries for not only regional Australia, but Australia as a whole. So can I thank our panellists, Richard McLoughlin. I know you pretty much have to go right now to another meeting. Thank you, Richard. John Bearne, Carly Abbott and Michael Guerin, thank you very much for your time. And Trish O'Callaghan, thank you. And thanks for joining us today for this webinar. This is the first of a series of webinars on Unlock the North. Next week, we'll have one on advanced manufacturing. We'll hear from some really innovative and wonderful Townsville, North Queensland-based companies that are doing some incredible things in this space. That's next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Then next Thursday at 11 o'clock, we've been really lucky to secure Nev Power. Now, Nev is the chair of the National COVID Coordination Commission, and he'll be joining us to speak about economic recovery post-COVID from a regional Australia and North Queensland point of view as well. He grew up in Collinsville, worked along in the Northwest Minerals Province, and was CEO of Fortescue Metals, and he is advising the Prime Minister in relation to COVID recovery. And also joining him will be Jennifer Westacott, the CEO of the Business Council of Australia. So we look forward to hearing their views on economic recovery post-COVID in regional Australia, with a particular focus of our region. Can I thank everyone for joining us today? Thanks again to all the panelists. Thanks for your time, and we look forward to bringing these to you over the next few weeks. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your day.